Hey everyone, today we're going to start talking about another transformation, and today's special transformation that we'll be focusing on is rotations. Let's go ahead and let's get started. So the main idea behind a rotation is that we take an image, sort of like maybe this paper triangle, and we're going to rotate it. Okay, we rotate it to some certain degree, and sometimes we'll rotate it across one of its points, but most often there's a point somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, and we rotate our image based off of that point around it. Okay, and a lot of times for this we need a protractor. Okay, a rotation, and the main thing, one of the main things that I like to focus on always is knowing how do we describe what a rotation, sort of how do we write it down, how do we notate it. So for rotations we use a lowercase r, and in parentheses we put two things. Okay, the first thing is how much we're going to rotate it by. So let's say, for example, 70 degrees. And the next thing is which point are we rotating it across? Like which point are we rotating it from? So a lot of times they'll use a generic point P. Okay, so this means rotate it 70 degrees around point P. Okay, so rotation will rotate a whole image to another location a certain amount of degrees from one point. All right, so here we have in a diagram that here's our original image, and they've rotated this X degrees based on point P. So if I measure the degrees between the new image and the old image, okay, well, the new image is the red one, and the old image, I'll see that this distance right here in degrees is whatever they chose for X. Okay, so the way that we actually do this is, here are a few steps. Just to keep things simple for this video, it's kind of hard to use a protractor on my screen and things like that, so we just went ahead and wrote down what are the steps that we need to use in order to actually rotate something like this. Okay, and credit to Pearson for these diagrams and these steps. Use a ruler and a protractor to draw 75 degree angles. So they want to rotate this image 75 degrees from this point. So these steps are pretty much how we would do it. The first thing we would do is we would draw a line between one of the points in our triangle. So the first one they do is X and P. We draw that straight line. Then with a protractor, using some tool, we would measure out what is 75 degrees, and normally we go counterclockwise. What is 75 degrees away from what would be the line that's 75 degrees away? So they measure 75 degrees, they draw a new line, and this line is usually the same length, okay, as your original line. These two lines are usually congruent, and that's where our new point would go. And we sort of repeat this process for the other 2 points, for Y and for Z. So for Y, we also draw a line, and then we rotate that line 75 degrees, and then that's how you get Y prime. For Z, you draw this line, measure 75 degrees, and you get the other line, and that's where Z prime goes. And the last thing, which is typically the last step for any transformation you do, is you connect your new points, and that's how you rotate something 75 degrees. And like I said, these steps are great. You could follow them, and you could change 75 degrees to anything. Most often, at least for my preference, I don't really focus too much on this. I like to do the rules of rotations, which we focus on 90 degrees, 180, and 270, and there's other ways to actually rotate an image when it's by that amount of degrees. But hopefully you can use these steps for your benefit. So that's as far as I'll go in terms of how to rotate an actual image. You're welcome to use those steps. They're great steps. But because of the way most things are going on right now during this time for distance learning, I understand that most people do not have a protractor, so we're not going to focus so much on how to do it with a protractor, because most likely most people don't have one. So let's go ahead and let's focus on the rules of rotations. Check out this next video where you'll be able to see how we can actually apply the rules of rotations to find where a point would move, and we can go about translating the image that way. So thank you for watching, and watch this next video.